The Corner's longtime bartender, shift manager, and all-around rock star, Brian McShane, gave me a tour of the brewery. Arbor Brewing is big into local sourcing and environmental sustainability. They were Michigan's first solar brewery, and now use solar thermal, photovoltaic, and geothermal technologies. Brian even took me into the cave, where the kegs are stored.
That's where the magic happens. It's probably the best room in all of Ypsilanti, honestly. I really couldn't put it any other way, because who would want a room that doesn't have a lot of fermenters and beer in it? Everything happens right over here. This is where it starts. This is a hopper here. Basically, whenever you are brewing a beer, start in with your grist build. All the grain's gonna come right into this hopper.
Right.
And it's gonna get pulled up through a vacuum and an auger up into the mill over here. And whenever people think about mills, typically they're thinking about a mill that creates flour. But our mill is a little bit different. If we pulverize our grains down to a flour, there's really no way that the liquid and the machinery that we work with is going to be able to penetrate and move around. Our mill is designed to crack the grain, crack the hullus, so we can access the sugars of the actual grain. So it's a little bit more separated. So instead of pulverizing a grain down, we can actually crack it into fine little grist, just like that.
Oh, yeah.
So we're just trying to access the sugars a little bit. Once it pops through here, it's going to go up into the mash tun. The mash tun.
Oh, okay.
M-A-S-H-T-U-N. And this is a big scary piece of equipment, but it is most integral. If you look inside of here, you can see you got these big arms to move around. Those start moving pretty quickly. We don't pasteurize or filter our beers at all. So this is pure, basically raw beer, if you would. There's a false bottom on here. So basically we start what's called a Vorluft. And that is German for recycle. So basically, as we add our grain into here, as we add our water into here and heat that up, it's going to percolate down, and it's going to trap the grains on this false bottom, wash the grains, and it's going to come back through the Vorluft and cycle back over and over and over, basically making a natural filter, if you would. So by not filtering our beer, we actually make almost like the bottom of a river, like a sediment bed on the bottom over here. And then eventually, the wort, which basically is like a barley or a wheat tea, if you would, a sugar tea, will run through this sight glass here, and that'll go clear. So when you start the Vorluft, you're going to have like heavy, hard particulates, full grains coming through there, and as that cycles through, you won't see much in there. And once that is cleared off, we'll move it over to the kettle. So I'm sure you're familiar with like say 60-minute or 90-minute IPA by Dogfish Head.
Yeah, sure.
Those numbers, those minutes are respective to how long the wort itself will stay inside the kettle.
Okay.
The beer gets hopped inside of the kettle. And that'll whirlpool and make a nice big conic with the actual pelletized hops. We use pelletized hops for the most part. Sometimes we use raw hops, but pelletized hops, which are manufactured through an extrusion method. It's very easy to store, very easy to use. That'll pop down there, it'll whirlpool and make a conic, and that is for the minimal loss. So when we pull off the bottom of this kind of, you see there's no conic over here and a slight conic over here. Yep. We can pull that down, and that conic of cone hops will pull right down, and then we can stop it. So basically we have a sight tube, and someone who's pulling that out, once it goes clear, they pull it. We don't want to lose beer down the sink. So after the kettle here, we'll move into a fermenter. And actually this is really cool, because it's really cool that you're shooting right now, because we just got this 50 barrel yesterday, as well as the 50 barrel that's back there yesterday. So we actually added another 100 barrels to our system. We pitch our yeast into the fermenters here. And this is really where all the magic happens. So all your CO2, all your alcohol production is basically taking the sugar tea into these fermenters, adding an active yeast into it, and that's going to consume those sugars and create alcohol and create CO2 and create the delicious beer that we all know and love. And it's a fantastic thing. So we mainly produce ales. Ales are a warm fermenting, top fermenting yeast. That's what they use, and we can basically make a turnaround in this real estate, if you would, in about 14 or 15 days. If you're going to be doing something like a lager or a pilsner, that's going to be a bottom fermenting, cold fermenting yeast, and that is going to be somewhere between the realm of 5 and 7 weeks. So we make specifically ales. And I like ales because they have got a nice big body. Typically the alcohol is a little bit stronger, and it's a beer for me.
Yeah.
It might be a beer for you.
Nice. It is my beer.
So inside of here, basically once we pull a beer out of here, this is done. We can drink this. We can pull it off and we can drink it. But since we're a manufacturing brewery, we want to take it one step further. And that's when we head over to these bright tanks. BT3, BT2, BT1. So basically the bright tanks are an extra step where we can put the beer in here. We can monitor its CO2. We can monitor all of its gravity and basically make sure the carbonation's on point. It's an extra step to make sure the beer has been kind of refined just a little bit more. So this is just basically a conditioning tank. This is just the end process. I mean, when you're doing home brewing and stuff like that, typically it's going to go fermenter to bottle, fermenter to keg. Since we're a manufacturing brewery, we choose to go the bright tank method. Yeah, it's a little bit better. And then from there, we'll basically line her up and we will fill kegs right here.
Right out of here.
Right. Yep. We'll pour it off. We'll put a three-way clamp on one of these guys. And we'll keg right here, or we can pipe it over and start off in the bottling line.
Are you running something through?
5 days a week. We brew 5 days a week. Yep.
Okay.
5 days a week, and that's a nice increase because it used to be 3 days a week, then it was 4 days a week, now it's 5 days a week. Now we have 5 days a week and someone's here on Sunday mornings. So I'm assuming that now having these 2 new 50 barrels in here, it's probably going to turn into a 6-day ordeal. And eventually we want to get that up to a 7-day status.
Right.
The best problem that you could ever have is people wanting a beer and then you just can't brew more.
You can't make enough.
It's probably the best problem.
Yeah, right.
We've been stuck with that a couple times. So, so we're pretty confident in pushing forward, and that's that's a sign of the times. We got 2 new 50 barrels in here. People want it, so we're gonna give it to them.
Yeah, nice.